advocacy program is what we're trying to do is we're doing trainings in Lethbridge, Calgary, Edmonton, St. Paul. We're working in those 4 communities right now and working really to build the capacity for community-based advocacy in a number of different areas. So writing human rights complaints, we've done victims' rights, we've done healthcare advocacy, and this is another one, and we're trying to respond to the needs and desires of community of what they want to learn about. And policing has been a really big, loud issue in all 4 communities, so I'm really excited about today. It's our first time doing one on rights and policing, and I'm really honored to have Tom and Kate Engel here to take us through today. So with that said, and I'm excited too because Tom and I are colleagues on the Coalition for Justice and Human Rights, which is a group here, and I'm going to say it's Alberta-based, really. It's a group of us professionals around the human rights who are working to try and address, both systemic and individual advocacy. So that's something with advocates that we're trying to create a space where we can all come together and push on some issues. So Tom, oh, sorry.
Just going back to the section, a few days ago at home there was an individual that got pumped and
got what?
hit by a vehicle.
Yep.
The police were standing there, and anyone in the on Blackfoot from south.
Yeah.
Our names were translated from names given to us, from nature or whatever.
Right.
And then the translation into English is what they used. And some of the names are quite long, translated into English. And the police officers that arrived on the scene were laughing at his name. And it just so happened that one of our doctors arrived on the scene, and that's when they kind of panicked. And then they got the ambulance and all the other departments to come by, but they were standing there laughing, making fun of this man who was injured, laying on the ground.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
What was the name, by the way, translated?
that Grove-on boy, Rose Spencer boy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if his rights were violated by that scene. So I just kind of wanted to.
Was this injured person a suspect?
No, he got bumped.
He just was a.
Crossing the street at a crosswalk.
Okay, well, so the police arrive, they take control, right? So let me think this one out. They take control of the scene. They're the ones who have to decide whether an ambulance is going to be called, right? I would think. So I would, first of all, this may be a criminal offense by the officers. It may be failed to provide necessaries of life. Because obviously it would be the officer's duty to call for medical care. Laughing? I don't know if yeah, it's unprofessional, but I'm just thinking, but could this fellow, did he hear it?
That, we're not sure, but there was about, maybe about 7 minutes past before we finally brought the ambulance and everything.
Yeah.
Like I said, there was a doctor that showed up.
Yeah.
Once they were all still standing there, she
Yeah.
just so happened to arrive, and there were witnesses that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, could that be a human rights complaint? That could be a complaint to the Human Rights Commission. It could be a criminal complaint, failed to provide necessaries of life. If the person, yeah, it could be a Section 7 breach, endangering the security of the person. It could be that. It could be cruel and unusual treatment. That's a different scenario that I haven't thought of. But these are things that, if this happens, something like that, you would want to get some legal advice about what could be done. And obviously, it's grounds for a complaint. This is an RCMP. It's ground, and we'll talk about this later. I talked at the beginning about being polite even if your rights are being violated, and we'll talk near the end about what you do about it once you're free of the police, okay? So we'll talk about all those remedies. Certainly, is there anything else? Yeah. That's pretty, here's something else. And it's not on our PowerPoint, but don't underestimate the power of the media. The media actually plays a very important role in the criminal justice system and in human rights system. Because if there's something outrageous like that, then if you know somebody like with the CBC is especially, I find, sensitive to this sort of thing. Radio stations, go to them, tell them about it. And you bring public attention to this sort of thing. I mean, this would gather widespread public condemnation of that. And the RCMP don't like that, right? And they're more likely to do something about it if the public is really pissed off about it. So
that reminds me of Gary Moostus. He went to the media and the result was public apology, I think healing circle. So that, I think that the media had a big part in helping making that happen.
a lot of people won't know what that is.
Oh, okay, that's Gary Moostus, an Indigenous man, was in city center. He was in the food court. He's just minding his own business, eating his lunch, and the security officers came up to him and ejected him from the mall for really no reason. Well, there was a reason.
Yeah, there was.
There was a reason. He was Indigenous, and there was a public apology acknowledging that, really essentially acknowledging, yeah, that's why this happened, we're sorry. So that's the Moostus.
Wasn't he an elder as well?
Yes, he was an elder.
Yeah.
He is an elder.
Yeah.
I think he worked at, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're allowed now.
I was wondering about the...
When somebody is arrested or detained, you need to tell the officer.
Okay, so they
Yeah.
will not be offered. They
No.
need to tell. that
You need
they
to,
did-
well, it might be if the officer's really on the ball, but you need to tell them the language you speak and you need help, and then it's their job then to make that happen.
I think they might even have translators available, the EPS, for example. This may be, but for sure, they're going to have somebody who speaks that language on the police service. One thing we didn't talk about here are security guards. We should probably add this to this PowerPoint at some time. Security guards are governed by the, what is the Security Guard?
Securities Investigators Act, something like that.
Yeah, and there is a process for making complaints against them. They do have certain powers, as you know, and then there's peace officers, like the officers who patrol Winston Churchill Square area.
Or the transit cops.
Or transit cops or peace officers. And then there's the Peace Officer Act, which governs their conduct. And there's fish and wildlife officers. They're governed by the Peace Officer Act. Am I right on that?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think so. We get lots of complaints about West Edmonton mall cops. They're, they like their force quite often. And so we make complaints under the Security Act. And so any person who is clothed with any kind of authority of the state, they're covered. And so yeah, we should, go ahead.
if you are in a private business, like a mall, that, I don't think the charter applies.
I don't know, but I don't know, but they could be sued, the employer could be sued, and you can make complaints. Yeah, I don't know. Well, if they detain you, put you in a jail cell at the West
I
Edmonton
think
Mall?
that petty
I
trespass.
have something on that, I have history and security.
Yeah. And anyway, mall cops or Rexall Place security, like there's always special duty cops there too, but they have the power to arrest you and put you in a holding cell until the cops arrive. So I'd be kind of surprised if the charter didn't apply, but anyways, we can't answer that
I
one right now.
think it's, okay, we're not gonna.
Yeah, we're not gonna, but you can do something about it.
So Tom really wanted this picture up here, so it's here.
Who doesn't recognize this? Put your hand up if you don't know what this is.
Oh, God.
Come on.
No
What, you
shame.
all have seen this? You all watched South Park? All of you? So this character's name is Cartman, right?
Cartman.
Cartman. And he says, yeah, you will respect my authority. And so you're going to come across a Cartman type cop. It's like, how dare you object to what I'm doing? You will respect my authority. And, you know, that should be a pretty good signal that you're dealing with a bad cop. And again, don't do anything to provoke them. You know, stand on your rights, but don't do anything to provoke him into using violence or abusing his power in some other way. Yeah, so thanks for putting the slide in. All right, you're walking down the street, minding your own business, or maybe not minding your own business, maybe you're doing something bad, but you're walking down the street and a police officer stops you. You've all heard of the street checks, carding issue. Police officer asks you for your name, possibly other questions, for example, where are you going, what are you doing, and also Renee asked us to deal with this one too, I think later. Show us your ID, we want to take a picture of it, our ID. So, first of all, police officers have no authority to infringe on your freedom of movement unless they have a lawful reason to do so. They are, however, free to approach anybody on the street and stores and just say, hi, you know, can I talk to you for a second? The citizen says, yeah, okay, and they can ask whatever questions they want. The Edmonton Police Service, I had urged the Edmonton Police Service to tell such people, because what they're doing is they are doing street checks. Tell such a person, listen, you don't have to answer any of my questions, and you're free to go if you don't want to be talking to me. But the EPS has refused to do that, saying, well, if we told the citizen that, then we wouldn't be able to talk to anybody. Yeah, exactly, right? But the truth is, they would be able to talk to lots of people. You know, they could say, you know, a police officer would say, you know, we're looking for, I don't know, this kind of bike that was stolen. Have you seen it? Right? I mean, that's legitimate policing. But a lot of these times they're not up to legitimate policing. They're targeting you, and they're fishing. They're just fishing for people. So when you get stopped like that, and I'm sure you know lots of people who this happens to. This is probably a pretty important topic, am I right? Mm-hmm. Okay. First question, am I free to go? If the answer is yes, go. assuming you don't want to be there talking to a cop. So just go. And that is a right you have. You're not lawfully detained, so you can go. What if the officer refuses to answer that? You know, this happens all the time. Am I free to go? Well, hey, calm down. We just want to talk to you for a minute. No big deal. No. You come back to the question. I want to know a specific answer to this. Am I free to go? And if the officer refuses to answer that, I think you should assume that you're not free to go. Or if the officer says you're not free to go, then you are detained. If the officer refuses to answer and you think that you're being detained, then the court will probably agree with you because you asked these questions and didn't get an answer. Because most people are going to assume that the officer has the legal authority to stop you from going, unless the officer says you can go. And that amounts to detention. So as soon as if the officer refuses to answer or says you can't go, then you are detained. Now the officer is obliged by law, section 10A, to tell you the reason for your detention. A lot of times the officer won't. So you say, why am I not free to go? That's another way of saying, why am I detained? The officer is required to tell you that. And the officer is also obliged, if you're detained, to tell you about your right to a lawyer. Now this never happens on street checks, right? Never happens that they tell you about your right to a lawyer. But if you know your right, you say, well, okay, if I'm not free to go, then I have a right to call a lawyer, right now, right here. And I think probably on a lot of occasions it would be, okay, cop closes up his or her notebook and see you later. This person seems to know what's going on, right? So this is really crucial that you inform people you're advocating for about this right, about these rights. And you do have to provide your name. If you are lawfully detained, you have to provide your name. And you need to err on the side of caution just to provide the name. But don't answer any questions. Remain silent. So let's say that you're not given the right to call a lawyer. That you say, I want to call a lawyer. The cop says, no, you're not entitled to a lawyer. I just want to ask you some questions. Well, sorry, but I'm not answering any questions. No questions, except this is my name. Just, you've got to remain silent. Now this is a difficult area for citizens to comply with, is to keep their mouths shut. But that's your right. It's your right throughout any of the criminal justice system. Witnesses don't have to say anything. They can remain silent. Suspects remain silent. You have a right to remain silent, and you need to use it. I can't tell you the number of times I've got a call from an arrestee. I give that advice, and I always say, now look, if you get charged, I don't want to be reading in the police reports that you started talking after I told you not to. Guess what happens frequently? You get the disclosure file, you open it up, oh, they've been talking. And it turns out that they have no evidence against you except what you said to the cop. Okay? So it's extremely important to remain silent. And they will try to overcome your right to remain silent. Now this isn't just walking down the street, because we're going to get to this on other slides here, but I want to explain it to you now. Police officers can lie to you in an investigative capacity. They can and they will lie to you to try to get you talking. They will pressure you. They will do all sorts of things. They may say, well, you know, if you don't answer our questions, we're going to have to arrest you and take you down to the station. They will do lots of things. Just remain silent. It's a tough thing to do. What was that thing about the fish?
What happens when a fish keeps their mouth open?
Yeah, or opens its mouth.
Opens its mouth.
Yeah, you get hooked. So, and there are a lot of people in jail who thought that they were smarter than their lawyer, and they thought they could talk their way out of it. Oh, this cop's a good guy or good gal. She'll understand. No, they're not there to help you. Always assume that they're not there to help you. Maybe in that kind of situation, the police officer is there because they're doing a good job and they're abiding by the law. But don't assume that, because it could come back and haunt you. All right. Okay, that covers that, eh? Yeah. Yeah, so what if a police officer takes your ID and takes a photograph of it? So demands ID, you give it to the officer, you're not detained or arrested, and it's illegal. Just say, well, I don't think I need to give you my ID. Well, I'm telling you to give me the ID. Okay, but I'm objecting to it. And if the cop pulls his camera out, wants to take a picture of it, say, I'm objecting to that too. Just make it clear you're objecting. And because it will be a breach of your right against unreasonable search and seizure, and probably a breach of provincial privacy laws to take that picture and it winds up in police records. And we'll tell you what to do about that sort of thing later in the discussion. And you know, people are obviously intimidated by the officer being there and the officer ordering and implicit threats. They're scared, all this sort of thing. But if you just say, I object to this, you know, you might have to prove it in court where the officer claims that you never said anything like that. But if you just stand on your rights and you're polite about it, respectful, then that's all you can do. And I agree with you, the result might be that you're taken to jail or force is used on you or something like that. But I don't know what else to say other than to stand on your rights and don't capitulate to unlawful behavior by the police. And also, the calling of the lawyer is really, really important, because I think that a lot of police officers, they'll know that what they're doing is illegal, and they don't want a lawyer getting involved. They'll just let you go. Okay, did you have something to?
Yeah, I wanted to say that if an officer is telling you, demanding that you do something that you know they have no authority to do, it's wrong, but my advice is always to verbally object, but do what they're asking you to do. It's not right, but it's your personal safety in the end. You don't want to be assaulted, you don't want to be abused in some way, and just know that if it does result in a charge against you, your lawyer can help you use all of that to defend you. That's what I have to say.
And the other thing is, if you have a cell phone on you, most people do, just say, okay, I'm going to be recording this. If the cop tries to stop you, that's unlawful behavior on the part of the cop. If you have a friend with you, ask them to start recording. Some cops will grab the phone and stop it. Well, that's obstruction of justice in my view. So, because it is important, because cops will lie in court about what you said. So if you have any way, I've had some guys come in and they've just reached and they have their phone and just, I don't know how they quickly turn it on record, but they do. One guy was in the back of a cop car in handcuffs, and he managed to get his phone recording in his back pocket. So use
Yeah, I
it.
was just gonna ask about that, about a voice memo, if it's your word against the cops, would you advise to just quickly voice memo, keep it on in your pocket and have it be recorded?
Oh, absolutely. And also, I think you could just say, well, I'm just going to pull out my phone here, officer, and I'm going to start recording this. And if the officer says you can't, then you would say, well, why not? As you're recording it, right? But you might be able to reach into your pocket and turn the recorder on without the officer knowing. I don't know.
Do you have to tell them that you're recording?
No, no, and the cops don't have to tell you that they're recording either.
And what about if you're a third party in that situation? Can you record
Yes.
for someone?
Yeah, as long as you do not interfere in what the police are doing. So just stand back. Sometimes the cops, you know, I saw, do anybody know Bashir Muhammad?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's is he Somalian? Somalian. Anyways, if you follow him on Twitter, you'll see that he does that kind of stuff. And he's got a video, he's taking a video of a couple of cops arresting somebody, and the cops are complaining about it, but I don't think they stopped him, did they?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe they did. I think they did eventually stop him, but he was just standing back, wasn't saying anything. Like, you know, I would say, don't say anything to the cops, just stand there and record it, and make it obvious to the cops that you are. But don't start yelling at the cops, what are you doing, you can't do that, because then the next person who's gonna be in jail is you for obstruct justice, right? So just, absolutely, that is your right, and it's a good idea. I mean, Kate and I were coming out of MEC years ago.
I was just going to, say that. And
Just, yeah, go ahead.
well, we were coming out of Mecca and we saw the police dealing with somebody who seemed like they had some mental health issues, and I remember this, he said, let's just see what happens. So we sat in his truck and watched, and they're just talking to this guy, and then all of a sudden, they come behind him, take him to the ground, and taser him. And
By that time, we were out of the
by that
truck.
time, we were out of there, but I remember I was videoing it, and as soon as they noticed we were there, and there's somebody watching who might hold them accountable or get an objective record of what was going on, their behavior changed. So if you feel brave enough, if you see something happening on the street, and you have your phone and you can record it, you could affect how the police are treating somebody. So if they're being overly aggressive and you just stand there silently and record, you will probably notice, if they see you, a complete change in their behavior. If you have the courage to do that.
Yeah.
Can't save everybody. It does take courage, but you could save somebody from abuse, I
Yeah,
think.
and in that one, it was kind of funny because Kate and I were just standing on the other side of the street from MEC, the old MEC, and downtown, and we weren't saying anything to them. We were talking to each other, but there's a few swear words that she said. I'm thinking, what are you, like, this is evidence, right? Anyway, so then afterwards, we were just standing there watching, and some other cop arrived, and then this cop comes over to Kate and me, and he knew who I was, I think.
Yes.
He said, "Oh, Mr. Engel, yeah, would you mind providing us with the video?" And I said, "To your superior, I will." And then we just provided very detailed written statements, but they figured out, they recognized me, right? So they knew that, oh, you know, this is not going to be good. But anyway, very important, and as a citizen, you can really help somebody out.
So what is the next step then? Sorry.
Oh.
Oh, no. Go
The next
ahead.
step?
Next step then, if I record something, because I was a citizen, but you just said as a citizen, that is my concern, I want a work permit here. So I'm always afraid when interacting with police officers because I don't have a status here.
What would be the next step?
Yes, if I record.
You've recorded something bad.
Yes.
That you think is bad. Well, you could make a police act complaint about that.
Mhm.
And if if you make the complaint, because as a person who witnessed it, you have the status to make a complaint under the Police Act or the RCMP Act. You would then they would investigate the complaint, you would then turn over a copy of the video, and then the police are obliged to disclose that to the accused if that person is being charged, and together with your witness statement. And it'll come to the attention of the defense lawyer or the accused. Yeah,
Or the Crown.
right. And, well, first they have to
Yeah,
disclose
the
it.
Crown might look at it
Yeah.
and think, oh,
Yeah, yeah, the first they have to, police have to disclose it to the Crown, Crown prosecutor, who are then obliged to disclose that to the defense. If you came to me, for example, but you could do this yourself, to say I want to be anonymous, then I would just take that video
Yeah.
and I would just send it to the chief of police
Okay.
and say, here's something, it's obviously, something to be investigated, but you wouldn't have standing to make a complaint, but the chief, if he receives something like that, should initiate an investigation. And the same thing applies, that video would be eventually, has to be disclosed to the Crown prosecutor if there's a prosecution.
if that happens though, there's a risk that your identity would be revealed.
But how?
If they wanted it in evidence.
Well, I don't know how though, if it came from me, for example, as a third party, here it is, I'm not telling you who my client is, and I don't have to, that's secret. How would they get it? They just have the video, right?
They can track it back to the phone, like with the technology, they have rights to
Metadata?
that. They
I-
can track it back technically.
Maybe, I don't know. You know, the metadata, yeah, maybe. Maybe, I don't know, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the person who has the phone was the videographer. I don't know, but there are ways to try and get around that.
Sure, so we're
What
talking.
yeah, especially, yeah, we've covered the first, but this here,
Okay,
let's talk about officers not releasing somebody at the point of arrest and bail, because that's really important.
by the way, does everybody understand the difference between being detained and being arrested? Do you need me to explain that? Okay,
Well, wait a minute, I don't think we went over that.
I saw some nods,
Yeah,
but
just
I don't have
explain it, yeah.
Okay, so being detained by a police officer, they're restricting your liberty, you're not free to go. In that situation, they're not charging you for a crime, they're investigating a crime or a potential crime. So that's what a detention is. An arrest is, okay, they've decided you're going to be charged for a criminal offense. So that's the difference between detention and arrest. And your rights, as we discussed so far, are the same whether you're being detained or being arrested. So this slide just talks about being arrested. You have the right to know why. You have the right to a lawyer. We already talked a lot about that. Remain silent. A very important thing to remember. I, like Tom, have many people where I've said, remain silent. I find out later they've talked and it's only hurt them. So just keep that in mind. So.
So are we gonna talk about investigative detention later, or is it right here?
No, I didn't have any.
Okay.
If you want to talk
Yeah.
about that, you should.
Okay, because this is a really technical area. So the only lawful reason that a police officer could have to detain somebody and not arrest is if there is what's called an investigative detention. So I'll give you an example. A murder has just occurred in a neighborhood, and the police are obviously there trying to find witnesses, trying to find the culprit. So you're walking down the street and they stop you in the course of an investigation, okay? So they're allowed to do that for obvious reasons. We have to allow the police to do that sort of thing. But remember, as soon as you're detained, you have all those rights, including not saying anything. I mean, you're gonna have to make a judgment call here if you're such that that person is a danger to herself or others. Then the police officer can arrest you on a Form 10 under the Mental Health Act and take you immediately to a hospital to be examined by a psychiatrist.
That didn't happen. I was going through a meltdown,
Yeah,
which is always short-term.
Yeah.
It doesn't last long, and they take it as aggression, and they think that it's an absolute threat when it's not. It's called autism.
right. But it's going to depend on the particular circumstances, what the cop said, what the cop was facing at the time.
For me,
What
it
if-
was a simple car accident in the dead of
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah, I understand that, but I can't answer your question, because I think you told me earlier that you're not very, you don't have a very good, reliable memory of everything that
No.
happened, right?
I
So-
was settled down enough to
Yeah.
understand that.
So what would be important to a lawyer would be to do a Freedom of Information application on the Edmonton Police. You never got charged, right?
No,
Yeah.
no,
okay.
but they basically threatened me.
Okay, well, hang on. Would be important if you came to see me and you retained me to act on your behalf, I would be doing a Freedom of Information application on the EPS to get all their records of this particular incident. And then some advice could be